This is, out of the many topics that I've covered and continually cover, this is kind of a favorite topic for me. This goes back to, of course, as an instructor originally in the 90s and forward, thinking about how I went through the process of a syllabus build or refresh. And then just thinking about my role as a faculty developer starting in the early 2000s and how I came to really focus on the syllabus, and for a while was on a syllabus, rampage or campaign for quite a while. And I still kind of continue to go back to the syllabus because I see a lot of potential that's just not being met, a lot of effort that's not being taken on the part of some. And so I think there's a lot of opportunity still at this day to be much more effective. So we wanted to go through kind of the concept of that welcome mat. Here we come, can't say quite coming out of the pandemic, darn it, but here we come into a new academic year and into a new reality. And campuses are facing that and are figuring out what they'll do. Policies are in place, procedures are in place, a lot of people returning to campus. Students are in a new state of mind and condition, and we all are. And so how do we take that syllabus process and maybe do some things to be more effective and present things in a different way as we go through that process of welcoming students back to whatever it may be. So some session goals, we'll check in regarding state of the syllabus, kind of looking at what we see in general, what we tend to see, but then thinking about humanizing, welcoming, and belonging elements, ideas for creating it more effectively. So in, let's say, presentation format, engagement format, how to get students to actually read it and be excited about it. And then how to establish connections with your students through the syllabus. And we also have another tool that you can use as kind of a next step from there. And then absolutely as much dialogue as we can get from you, always through the chat. And again, as Molly said, make sure that goes to everyone if you're wanting to share out across the group, because we'd love to hear from you throughout. But we also have some engagement opportunities here as well. And we'll use chat and we'll use Padlet and things like that. So let's jump in. So let's start off, first of all, with going to our Padlet, first time here. And how did we learn to create a syllabus? And now I know we have a lot of learning designers or instructional designers here. Think about what you're seeing around you. How are people actually engaging in creating their syllabus? How did they learn to do that? So you've got the link in the chat, yes. So we should see just column 1 for now. And I've done this in multiple sessions where I've seen kind of a pattern come up. Are people able to click the plus? Yeah, I see it now, great. Once in a while, Padlet does not cooperate. From other syllabi, yeah, absolutely. And while some other things are loading there, yeah, I remember very clearly my first hire and going to my first position and having all my new preps. And, again, before, well, it wasn't before the internet, but it was before everything was stored in the cloud. And so it was a matter of going to the department and digging through the files, the master syllabi, or contacting the instructor who taught those sessions before me, figuring out, will they let me borrow their syllabus, look at their syllabus. College template, love that. I'm seeing more templates out there, that's great. Some places require them, some places provide them. Kind of depends on your local rules and academic freedom and things like that. You inherited it, or it may have been handed to you. Here's the syllabus. That happens sometimes. There's a master course and a master syllabus. Particularly for adjunct faculty, they may be hired at the last minute. So it's a good thing if the syllabus can be given to them and they can be given direction. Here's the textbook, here are the breakdowns of the topics. From the department chair, yes, templates, gathering different examples, workshop, great. It's nice if there can be a workshop where there can be some creation and customization taking place and you can be helped through that. And hopefully we'll give you some more ideas today. Education department at my PhD institution. Yeah, if you went through a doctoral program in education, you have an advantage there because the focus was on teaching and learning and theories and practice and research. And so you have an advantage there in having learned some of those things maybe through the process, but most people land with their PhD They interview in an institution, usually with a research presentation, and then they're given the keys to the classroom, so to speak, and then maybe a syllabus to mimic. Okay, let me see if there are a template and checklist. Yeah, and we do have some checklists that we provide as well. Okay, so I'm seeing some common themes and a couple of newer ideas as well. Great. So let me jump us back. And now let's look forward. So creating that new sense of normal and welcoming students back. And we'll try and stay on that theme a little bit as we go forward. So what are your guests like? These students that are coming back in the next few weeks for most of you, what are they like? Well, let's look at a little bit of the data here. And this is just one of multiple surveys that was published recently, I believe in the last few days. This one happens to just have some data from Ohio State University. You can see just over 1,000 students responded. And if you look at August 2020 compared to August 21st on some of these conditions, anxiety, depression, and burnout, you can see a pretty big increase, particularly in burnout amongst these students. Now, I would have liked to have seen the baseline data, let's say back in February of 2020, right before the pandemic. Then we would have a true baseline. So August 2020, they were already deep into the experience. But of course, April, it's dragged on quite a bit. And so there's been some sort of compiling effect there. So they're coming to us with a lot of these conditions, a lot of presence of this condition. And then if we look at some of the behaviors that they may have engaged in over the same period of time, eating unhealthy, alcohol for coping, or tobacco or vaping, those have increased, unfortunately, the negative behaviors. If you look at physical activity, that's actually decreased, which is unfortunate. Mental health counsel has increased. Now that's kind of a double-edged thing. You would hope that it would increase because of some of the conditions you see on the left. But the fact that it did need to increase and those conditions caused that, that's the downside of it. But mental health counsel can always be a good thing. So I do have the URL for you if you're interested in looking at some of the research there, but that's just a quick snapshot to think about. And we all know those things are out there. We're experiencing them ourselves. And so we can probably see where we are in the spectrum of the things on the left and the things on the right. But it's good to see the numbers and to see the extent and how that's increased over time. So what we've been doing, and we do this in many ways, is we really lean into purposeful. As we think about students and we think about the classroom and the instructional experiences, we really want to make it about the students. And so we bring some of those factors you saw on the last slide into play as we think about our purposeful learning framework that you see here. And you have access to this through a link that you'll get in the chat as well. How do you create an effective course welcome so that they're introduced effectively, they're oriented, and the expectations are laid? How do you start creating a community? How do you humanize and show empathy? And then how are you inclusive? So those are some of the main elements of our framework that you'll see present in today's session, especially. Okay, so now let's talk about the humanizing aspect of your syllabus. And let's go back to the Padlet. So getting that in chat here. And let's look at column number 2. So what are your initial thoughts or ideas toward humanizing the syllabus? What have you seen done? What have you done? Or what do you think initially here, what could be done? Yes, absolute agreement. Awesome. We've got some great examples for you today. I mean, really true working examples, solid. Language matters. Thank you. We're going to get to that and some good research that backs that. Place it outside the LMS. Thank you. The LMS is critical as a central hub for your course, but we'll also talk about the syllabus and opportunity for that to live outside of or pre-exist the student's experience in the LMS for your course. Explaining what a syllabus is, many don't know. Yeah, and we'll talk about it. As I was preparing this session, there was a list of like 20 things about the syllabus that are critical, but it started kind of looking like a syllabus workshop, and that's not really what today is about. It's not going to focus on policies and writing effective learning outcomes. I started thinking about that, and I thought, no, that's heading us down a different path. So we won't go to some of those elements today. Gamifying it, I love that. I'd love to hear more as we go on. So please use the chat as we get to different elements of the humanized syllabus. I know some instructors who have been kind of gamifying it. Spending time on course, class, community, making it interesting and relevant, not on punitive policies. Yeah, and that goes back to language as well. Your language, your intent, your focus. Being positive and inclusive, absolutely. And I have an inclusivity statement that I'll share, but that's only one step in being inclusive. Liquid syllabi, great. We're going to actually show that example today. Yeah. Michelle Pacansky-Brock, she's wonderful. Think always about what students will be doing. Think always about students. Yeah, it is about the students. Providing tips and tricks on how to succeed. Yeah, they should all have the opportunity to be successful. The course isn't a weeding out experience. So how do you set that up with your syllabus and carry forward from there? Okay, great. Thank you for all those. Okay, so when we talk about humanizing, we want to do that early and often. So with the syllabus, often it is that thing that might be in your learning management system attached within the course. It happens during week one, students arrive, there's the formal start of the course, but there's really this high opportunity zone after registration and after your course roster is set, maybe at week 0 or week -1 or -2, somewhere in there. And I know people are off contract as far as faculty at times, but what can you do to have a syllabus that's outside of the LMS? And how can you provide that to students ahead of time? And so we'll give you some ideas, because that's that high opportunity zone where you can really intentionally incorporate kindness cues and be inclusive and start establishing community and start establishing some excitement and curiosity about your course. So we'll talk about ways to do that and how you can do that even before you formally meet with them in a synchronous or even asynchronous format during week 1. Okay, and so I saw the comment about language, absolutely. And I was thrilled to see some of the research that came out this spring, late spring. So using first and second person language, so it's not students in this course will, or you better, it's not punitive, it's not impersonal, a warmer tone. I welcome you to contact me outside of class. Yes, you're going to set parameters for when they contact you, how quickly you respond, what the modes and methods are, things like that, but you can still put it in positive language, because that welcome and that I is really important on there. Warm versus cold. If you are using a warm tone, like you see in the example there, I welcome you to contact me outside of class. That had no impact, according to this study from Oregon State, that had no impact on student perception of instructor competence. So you being likable, you being personable, doesn't mean that you're less knowledgeable or less rigorous in how you deliver your course or how you assess your students. Some people think you have to be more impersonal, more firm, and maybe even there's that weeding out role of 30% or whatever percent students. And then you can also address the stress and mental health with the university statement. So your university would have different statements about supporting students' stress and mental wellness. And so you can incorporate those, and that's a good practice. But again, you can follow your university guidelines as to what's required and what's recommended, but certainly something like that, particularly given the statistics that we saw earlier, is important to have in there and letting students know where they can find help. So I do have the link to the article for you. Again, you'll get the slides, recording, and all of that. We'll talk about that bundle at the end that you'll receive, so don't worry about jotting everything down. But this is a good study that came out of Oregon State this spring that looked at tone of the syllabus and how it mattered, and how students, particularly URM students, were more likely to feel welcomed, belonging, and able to ask for help. Okay, so ways to be inviting to your guests. In the chat, how many of you know Michelle Pacansky-Brock? 49 of you here, I'd say probably 30 of you or more. I mean, she's been doing this for a long time, does just such amazing things with so much heart and intention and intelligence. Yeah, we've known each other for a long time, and I just love coming across her continual development in this area. So this is just an example of how she creates a welcome video for her students and how she makes that available ahead of time. She can embed it in her syllabus. I'll show you an example of that, but it can also exist just as something she links to in a message to her students. And this is her messaging on the right that you can see, and that's certainly in positive tone and welcoming and connecting with students and trying to get them excited about the course. And she's showing her excitement for it, her passion for it. And then she's again in that high opportunity zone trying to get this done through this example. And one of the things that she'll make note of, and I always tell people, is that video doesn't need to be perfect or high produced. Students don't want it to be this high level production that's polished. They want it to be something that's authentic. So don't stress over, I can't do a perfect video. I don't have all the gear or equipment. These things are typically shot just directly in Zoom or through a smartphone. And then breaking the ice. So how can you start a community with your students? In a welcome message, like you just saw from Michelle, maybe that welcome message has a link to a Flipgrid. So instead of just a video of her welcoming the students, maybe instead you can have a Flipgrid where that video is embedded as your welcome, but then you're asking the students to introduce themselves. So that's another step that I tend to add on, not having both of those things, but I take it a step further, I should say, by using Flipgrid. And in a Flipgrid, as of today, we have a colleague who is actually in a meeting with the CEO of Flipgrid, and they're actually releasing some big developments today, should be announced. So you'll see some things with Flipgrid that hopefully are very encouraging. I've really enjoyed using it with people with different communities. It's worked really well. It's super easy. It's free. You can just record right into your browser, and then students can do the same thing. And then you can have those videos audio captioned. There's some more things they can do with accessibility, which we will talk about at different points today. Any of you using Flipgrid with your students? Creating community? Great, thanks, Ellen. Lorelei, great. For intros, absolutely, that's a great way to do it. And it can be for intros and forming community, but you can also use it per module if you wanted, or per topic, or you don't want to overuse it, but you could certainly use it for a version of discussions rather than just text-based threaded discussions. Yeah, so for those that think they're curious about it, I would encourage you to definitely check it out. It's been a great tool. And the fact that it's evolving and some advancements as of today, that's very encouraging as well. So getting students to take notice and then read your syllabus. That's a big step. Everybody puts effort in their syllabus, some more than others, but how do we get students to actually read it and see it for the important opportunity that it is? So let's go back to Padlet. And let's have you just look at column 3A and 3B. So in what ways are you creating interest in your syllabus? And then 3B is, have you encountered restrictions or resistance innovating your syllabus? That's a reality as well. So some soft shoe or a little tap dance. And yeah, so if you could add a little bit to that, how you're doing that. Are you doing that literally through your syllabus, through a visually enhanced syllabus? Are you doing it through a video, a liquid syllabus? So just getting on that one, okay. Low stake syllabus take home quiz. Yeah, that's a tactic people use. Maybe it's a quiz, or you might call it a scavenger hunt. Yeah. Getting it before class. Yeah, it should be attached to registration now. That's a matter of getting it from the instructor, getting them to actually do it in time. Some are still selecting their reading materials in August. It can be baffling for students. An orientation quiz embedded in the LMS, love that. Yeah, trying to reference back to the syllabus every time you have contact sessions. And I'm thinking that means, office hours or such. Yeah, how can you keep linking back to the syllabus? Often our practices, we blast it out to students during day one. We go over it in a very contractual way. I'm generalizing, but then we move on. We dive into content and we just keep going forward, where the syllabus should be a reference point to come back to at certain points, either in one-on-one discussions or whenever issues come up with the class. breaking them up into groups to review the syllabus together, develop a list of FAQs. Yeah, and yeah, so you can definitely have that from the homepage, have it be a discussion thread. Love that. Presenting it as a survey. Ooh. Nice one. Lots of pictures, sometimes memes. Yeah, we'll look at visual examples today. Great. I don't think I am equal. You're here. That's great. That's a lot of opportunity then. And you'll see plenty of, okay, so I'm looking at 3B briefly and I'll get us back into the session here. Restrictions, not at all. No real resistance. No certain policies that are required. Absolutely. I'll pause there in case I don't get to it later, but on policies, often a course syllabus can be just so laden with policies. And what we've been doing, and I've worked with a lot of campuses, is to take the course shell or template, if you will, in the LMS, and how can those required across the board policy statements be embedded into the course shell and not be required in the syllabus, that every instructor has to then pull that in and make sure they place it in there and be held accountable. How can it instead be just a universal part of the course shell that can be over on the left-hand side under policies or resources? So we've done that to be able to tighten things up and make it less about the syllabus. Some places have a standardized template that must be used. Let's hold on to that because I'm going to get to that issue and I'm going to show you how to get around that a little bit easily. Not breaking rules, but kind of covering both bases. Requires a PDF version. Yeah, we'll get to that as well. I understand that there are restrictions out there. I've worked with some countries, counties, prefectures where there's been the required, you will not change a single word within the syllabus, the outcomes, the materials, nothing. So I get it. It's not always a reality to be able to just be flexible. Okay. So let's then submit examples and please continue to share along the way. So what you see on the left here, and you can see this is from 2011. I've used this example for a long time because I just love it. The before and after, and look at the context here, senior marketing. So here's the syllabus coming to a senior marketing internship group of students. A syllabus like this in a marketing course, and this instructor finally realized, what am I thinking? The syllabus really is the marketing element for this course. It speaks about the course. So why am I doing it like this? Probably just because of what we all said at the beginning. We learned from others. It was handed to us as a practice. We perpetuated the same way of doing things. So this instructor decided, okay, this is the time now. Fall 2011, that's it. I'm moving forward in a different way. And she actually went to an infographic format. We'll talk about pros and cons of that. It's not perfect, not saying that any of these are perfect, but this is a great example. All of a sudden, she is modeling marketing. She started using, back in 2011, started using a hashtag for her course. Students started going to that hashtag after they had enrolled and before they started the course. She was circulating this to the roster. Students started flooding into this section of the course because of what they were seeing. So it then became sort of an upping of the game of the other sections and the other instructors in a sort of positive, friendly, competitive way. Because this is something everybody has access to doing. This person just happened to think of it first. And so you can see some of the traditional content here, and it's an infographic. It scrolls down, and there are pros and cons to that, and we will talk about accessibility for sure. I've got that built in, and I have some really good recommendations for that. So this is just an example of a pre and post and how she was able to just totally flip her syllabus and gain the interest of students and enthusiasm about the course, and it became marketing, and people started really coming toward that course. And then I'll just give you a snapshot and talk through some of the links to the right. We won't put all these in chat, but again, you'll get the slides and you can look at these. Graphic design, there's a pre and post there. That's more of a, I think a PictoChart example, and we'll talk about that in a minute. There's one for oceanography. I tried to put up a mix of disciplines up here and a mix of different types. And we'll look at it a couple of them more closely, in particular on the one on the left I just love. So we'll look at that a little more closely in a minute. And then the marketing, you have the pre and post linked there. And then the US history that you see on the left, we're going to see a bigger shot of that, and I'll go a little bit deeper on that. So what are some of your thoughts so far on visual syllabi? Are some of you doing these types of things already? We'll get into formats and other techniques, but I'm just trying to gauge the room. Have some of you tried a more visual form of a syllabus? Great, thanks, Jocelyn. And Jen says not yet, so I see that as a positive, some interest there. Ellen planning on it, awesome. So that's great. I'm hoping today is going to just give you a lot of things to think about, and then some examples to kind of riff off of a little bit. Yeah, Jessica, hold on to that ADA compliance. We're going to get to that. I've got a solution. It's a simple one. All right, still got to convince Sandy. We'll work on it. We've got another 20 minutes or so. Required to use the ADA template. Yeah, let it be clear that I'm not telling anybody to be inaccessible. If some of you know me, my background with UDL and accessibility goes back 15 years. It's part of my being inclusive, a big part of that. Okay, I see ADA several times. That's awesome. You're thinking of it. 10 years ago, would have not come up. There'd be one person in the room kind of calling it out, and everybody else would be just sort of ignoring it. Okay, so let's talk about the liquid syllabus then, and that did come up earlier. And again, going back to Michelle Pacansky-Brock and coming up with this concept. So this is a web-based syllabus that can be shared with students early, and it helps them to connect and helps to set your intention and their intention for the course. And they can start engaging with the syllabus. It's something that's on the web, and it's also mobile platform ready. And so they can go through the syllabus, they can go through some of the videos and resources you've posted. You can even, if you wanted to, lead them to hashtags and things like that. No requirements necessarily, but giving them at least the opportunity to get in frame of mind a little bit. So let's talk about the liquid syllabus. And here's Michelle's example. So I'm going to go ahead and jump to this now. And Michelle has been teaching in the California Community College system for quite a long time. And also she worked with me in the Cal State University system for a few years. Now she's back with California Community Colleges, playing a bit more of a system-wide role with their online education initiative, which is a great place for her because she does things really well. She's adept with the technology, stays on top of it, social media, all of those things, humanizing, and she's engaging. So it's a really good model. So let me see if I can bump up our size on that a little bit for you, just in case. So this is her Mount San Jacinto College course, History of Still Photo. This is where her welcome video is embedded right up front. You can see similar text that I put into one of those slides. It's about a 2-minute video. And then she even posted her commitment to the students, and then some advice from past students. So it's nice that there's that continuum there. And then how the course works. This one happens to be fully online, 8 weeks. There's no required textbook, etc. And then her teaching philosophy. So again, learning should be meaningful, and the difference each person brings enriches the learning of the group. And then talking about diversity, inclusivity. And then what you can expect from me and what will I expect from you. I like that. What you can expect from me. It's not students in this course, it's not rules, it's it's not just etiquette. It's really about what do we each bring, how can we expect from each other and be accountable in contributing. And then her equity statement, I would prefer an inclusivity statement, and I'll share one with you. And then week 1 success kit. I'm not going to go through the whole thing. 6 tips. So just some things to think about if you want to look at a liquid syllabus. This is through Google Sites. So free and easy to set up. And again, it's going to have a good accessibility backbone. You still want to have your videos captioned, of course, and alt text on your images. But other than that, good to go. So feel free if you have any comments on the visual syllabus here. And I see ADA popping up again. Again, if you have your videos captioned and your alt text in there, then students will be able to navigate through the different sections and headers. Whoops. Okay, some cautions. So let's get to that a little bit. Use visuals with purpose. It should somehow connect to the context of the course. So think about that. Think about adding meaning. And you saw that in a couple of the visual syllabus examples earlier. For example, the US history one, obviously that was from the context of what they'll be discussing. Okay, so keep your syllabus updated in text-based format. Whenever you go to update your syllabus, update it in Word, for example. Make those updates in Word. Then if you want to put it into a liquid syllabus format, you can copy and paste into that template. If you want to put it into a Canva or a PictoChart, you can copy and paste into that template. You now have the text-based version that can be accessible and be part of your university's template and ADA compliant. You can maintain that. It can be in the department records. It can be there for accreditation purposes, because I know they want that. So you can have all of that available, or some students might just prefer the text version. But now you've got this more engaging visual version, so you've got yourself covered. You haven't done a whole lot of extra work because you're doing the content changes in the Word version. You're copying and pasting to the other version, into the other templates. So that's just a really simple way of covering ADA compliance and covering any department requirements, template requirements by your campus, or if you are in a field that has accreditation reviews, then they're definitely going to want to see a standard format. So hopefully that's helpful on advice related to ADA. Sandy, convince my college. Yeah, I know. It can be difficult sometimes. So what are some ways to create a visually enhanced syllabus? What are you thinking now? Some of you have said, yes, I want to do some of these things. You're working toward it. What might you already be doing to create a visually enhanced syllabus? Yeah, as far as the visual syllabus, I mean, if you want to, you can have the LMS chunked one. You can strictly, if you wanted to, you can link from your welcome page. I mean, you can send it to students ahead of time after you have your roster. And maybe they can't even get into the LMS until the first week of classes or a couple of days before, but you could send them this enhanced syllabus or liquid syllabus ahead of time so they can start engaging, so they know what material requirements are, what things are going to be like, what's expected of them, maybe even getting into a thread of a discussion or going to some hashtags. So the reason why you wouldn't want just in your LMS is students typically have to wait until the week of or the week before classes to get in there. This is a great way that you can do things earlier. But it does also become embedded into the LMS so that it's there for them as they continue forward once the course goes live. Other visual syllabus thoughts? Maybe some of you aren't quite there yet because I haven't shown some of the template sources. I'll explain those in just a minute. And then thinking of learning designers, instructional designers, how are you approaching the syllabus with faculty, or is it a don't go there topic where you are? Are you trying to influence? I know there are some CTL directors here, Centers for Teaching and Learning. How are you approaching the syllabus and trying to evolve that with your faculty? What are some topics of discussion, or maybe some workshop techniques that you might be doing, or faculty learning communities to look at this? Great, so Canvas, you can make that syllabus page public, share it ahead of time. Awesome, good reminder. Jen, you had a liquid syllabus workshop over the summer and they loved it. Yeah, I think it's great. Some faculty, it's just not their personality. They bristle at things like this. They don't want the feeling, the empathy necessarily. They don't want to put their personality out there. I get it. And I get that some faculty will even look at these examples and say, I don't like that. And, I try and show a variety of examples and talk to people about how they can kind of find their style, their fit, if they will. But for some faculty, they just absolutely say, I don't like it. And I have to be careful. I have to have a relationship when I respond this way, but I often flip it back to them and say, well, it's not about you, it's about your students. Because that's what the syllabus is to be designed for, is the students. Yes, it's designed to prop up requirements and all those required things, but it's designed for students. Your course is designed for your students. So this is another way of just trying to flip it to being learner-centric, student-centric. And so again, I have to be careful, but I do hold that up to them and say, it's not about you at times. Because sometimes that's flat out the response I'll get. Making recommendations to, your academic dean, chairs, curriculum committees. Sometimes those can be restrictive. Welcoming and inclusive language. Yeah, absolutely. And we'll show a little bit more of that in just a moment through a couple examples that I'll pause a little bit more deeply on. Okay, so let me take us there. Looking at almost a quarter of. So yeah, as I mentioned earlier, PictoChart was something common that was used, maybe 10 years ago to 5 years ago. But in that 5 years ago to now timeframe, there's been a bit more of a shift to Canva. That's become more visible and I think adept in some ways, but both of those are good resources. Canva for a while now has been offering free accounts to .edu email accounts. That was universal, but when I looked about a month ago, it was for K through 12, but I think you could contact them and probably get a free account, a pro account, free. But if not, you can still get a free account that will include many of their templates and many of their graphics, a large number. And the same with PictoChart. You can get much of that for free. Great, and I see there's a September workshop. Are you on quarter system? Hopefully that's not too late, but maybe it'll impact folks for the winter or spring term. So that's kind of why we're doing this session right now, is preparing people for late August start, or for some folks September. They'll have time to consider adapting their syllabus either in language or in format. Have any of you used Canva before, or PictoChart? They're commonly thought of being used for, let's say, infographics, where you're interpreting research in a visual way. But I'm seeing more common practice where people are now creating the visual syllabus this way. And what you see on the screen here is a pretty limited syllabus, but it's just a snapshot. Great. Yeah, I would recommend looking at either of those. Again, you've got your AD compliant Word or text-based version through your campus template. Copy and paste into a Canva or PictoChart template. Boom, you've got it. You don't need to be a graphic designer. You might see some institutions do have a Canva account, so you might look into that. But again, you can push the limits pretty good with their free account. BioRender, okay. I'll have to look that one up. Sounds like, okay, maybe more biology specific. Yeah, I wonder if they would have a template that would accommodate something like this. Okay, so let's move forward to some other examples. So this is going back to that US history. You saw a small snapshot, and I'll pause on this one for a moment. Some people use a Microsoft Word template. Many people don't know that if you go to File, New, by default, it's going to be a new Word doc because you're working within Word, and that's typical what people are using is just a document. But you can go in and you can find all sorts of templates for resumes, cover letters, newsletters. And so a lot of people have found that these Word templates for newsletters can work out really well for a syllabus and have this type of layout. And so again, presenting a student with a syllabus like this versus your typical just text-based header, office hours, course description is very minor, etc. Presenting them with something like this is a completely different experience. And they tend to sit up and take notice, and they want to read more. They want to explore more because it has visuals, it has style, it has a theme to it, but it has all of the content that's necessary. But I want to get back to course description a little bit because that came up. Oh, one other thing, some people, if they are Mac users, they'll use Apple Pages. So that's similar. They also have a lot of templates that you can adapt, particularly the newsletter ones. And there are web-based things that you can do out there as well. We talked about Google Sites. Some people use WordPress, but those are going to be higher end. So look at the course description here, and I'm hoping you can read that, but just look at the language. Again, it's first person. You will learn about broad themes in the history of modern America. You will also develop ways of thinking historically through critical analysis. You will be busy actively doing history, not passively learning about history. So I'm just calling out some of those statements there. And if you just think about a typical course description and what that looks like, and we'll look at a couple of those in a moment. And then this is a 5-page syllabus, so it's not too lengthy. Again, if I were to make this a broader syllabus workshop, we would get into length, but we're not going to get into that today. That's outside of what we're going to focus on. By doing a visually enhanced syllabus, it tends to get you to tighten things up. And then maybe rely on your LMS to have other things, like I mentioned earlier, within your course template. So think about your course description. And let's look at a couple examples here. So here's Biology 103, Sex, Death, and Evolution. Now you look at the title of that and it's pretty intriguing. You might be thinking, I don't know, Game of Thrones or something like that. There's a lot that could be to this course. And now look at the description. Evolution is the conceptual foundation for all the life sciences. Overview of theoretical and empirical evolutionary biology using examples that involve sex and or death, designed for non-majors. There's the student's invitation to the course. Okay, that's not giving them much a sense about what it's about, how they will apply it now, how they might apply it going forward. That is basically catalog copy, but this is what actually will go into a syllabus many times, is a copy and paste of the course description. Extremely limiting. And feel free to put your thoughts in the chat there. I picked that one on purpose. And then this one, in contrast, the science of play. Toys and games, key components of play, have evolved from homemade trinkets to highly engineered items in a multi-billion-dollar industry. You'll explore the connections between technology and play, specifically the benefits, drawbacks, and ethical implications of toy and game design. Case studies allow you to consider familial, cultural, sociological, and other influences upon toy and game design. Through discussion, analysis, and workshops, etc., you will move forward. This is a course description that talks about the context and what will take place and how it applies, where the real world connects. If we look at this first one, that's why so many people in industry and workplace are so frustrated with higher education, is this type of limited thinking. It's all about this course and theory and how it exists within that bubble. And yes, it'll prepare you for the next bubble of the course that you take, where this is, yes, about that course, but also is bigger, and how you as a student will look at the different elements and apply those and learn and be prepared to go forward into that area. So any thoughts on these descriptions, on anything you're doing with your course descriptions? Are you following just course catalog? You don't have to admit that if you are. Or are you actually speaking about your course to your students? Yeah, the second description, much better. I should have drafted my own description for the first one. That would have been fun. Maybe I'll do that for next time. I'll use that Game of Thrones approach. And looking back at that history syllabus on the prior slide, I mean, she went really deep on that, a few paragraphs deep. But I think that gives students a real good sense of what they're coming into and why it matters. Okay, I'm going to move forward from there. So hopefully that gives you more to think about in your course description context. And let's get back briefly to the liquid syllabus, because I've seen some interest here, and I know a couple of you mentioned workshops coming up. If you're not fortunate enough to have a workshop at your institution related to the liquid syllabus, I looked last night and stumbled upon this and was thrilled, and I maybe knew before but forgot, but Michelle and her group actually have an open access course on creating a liquid syllabus. So you can actually go through your own workshop led by Michelle through Canvas, open access, and figure out how to design a liquid syllabus with all of her examples and all of her guidance. So this is great. And so we'll get that into the chat, the URL that you see on the screen here. And I don't recall how long is expected as far as taking to go through this mini course, but you know, it's self-paced, and I know it's not heavy as far as reading requirements certainly or anything like that. It'll just take you through the steps of the elements and give you examples and guidelines. Oh, I'm seeing some other things, Unsplash, Pixabay, and Pexels. Oh, websites for free images, awesome. Yeah, there's that mini course. So feel free to dive in and think about that liquid syllabus, and she'll lead you through doing it via Google Sites because it is user-friendly and free. And Google is doing a tremendous job in terms of accessibility. And then the content you put in there, as long as you're, again, captioning and alt tagging those images, then you'll be in good shape. Okay, so I'll move forward there. That's a great deep resource. And then in the chat, any other examples of creating interest or getting students to read the syllabus? I didn't cover everything today, but what are some other things that come to mind? And I so appreciate your comments in the chat. That makes a big difference, seeing what you're thinking, suggestions you might have, things that resonate with you. Love that. Jigsaw activity, great. Lorelei, anything else you can share on that? If you were to have, if any of you had an example and then had a link to it, feel free to drop that into the chat as well. It's not about us and only us as far as what we're sharing from our end. It's about a community here. Yeah, the orientation quiz, absolutely. Set that up in your LMS. Scavenger hunt, frame it either way. Yeah, if you just say scavenger hunt, could be pretty much the same thing, but sounds more fun. Yeah, and if you, I didn't think to do it, but if you do a search on the web for syllabus quiz, you'll find examples. Yeah, Rhea, good question. I mean, that's always an issue. Working with very tired faculty when suggesting that they put more work and change into their syllabus. Yeah, there's a readiness and willingness factor, and fatigue and burnout are huge right now. So, you know, you can't move everything with everyone. You have to really just kind of approach it and show benefits, show options, try and show how it can be streamlined, try and really prop up the benefits to students, you know, anecdotally or by data, you know, the tone data or from a colleague of theirs that they might respect, if you can give an example. So just a lot of different ways to approach it. But, you know, the question that comes from Maria, again, you know, and it didn't go to everyone, but yeah, feel free to respond. Anyone else who's made that effort, working with, you know, just tired, exhausted, burnt out faculty, and how to get them to change. Change requires effort. There's that inertia. So how can you chunk the change? How can you lead them forward on the path? And also when we go through workshops, I always let people know you can't and shouldn't do everything that you've seen in a session like this. That's just too much. It would just be this mishmash. But how can you intentionally move forward? Whether it's a really big step between now and the first day for this fall semester, or how do you make a step to make it better and then just keep adding over time? So, you know, be kind to yourself, be reasonable. Is your Center for Teaching and Learning willing to maybe gather examples and post those on their center website? You know, they would want to get permissions. Obviously, that's part of the process, but it'd be great to have a gallery, have a workshop, have a forum, some sort of panel. Involve students, have students talk about their experience with course syllabi, you know, traditional versus some of these others. And you don't want to put people on the spot that might be in the room, but get that student voice in there. Great, you're doing some workshops. So hopefully some ideas from today, and then that practical element of how much can you push? give them a range of things and address that up front. And then be careful not to be like me and say, it's not about you, it's about the students. No, you want to have a little bit of that tone, however you can influence that. All right, wrapping up here, feel free in the chat, I will keep an eye on that. Appreciate it again. Setting the stage for inclusivity. So this is a model of an inclusivity statement that I use with a lot of folks as a recommended version. I'm giving attribution to the Everly Center at Carnegie Mellon. And then we also adopt it through my UDL efforts. And I even embed in the middle a statement that I took out for today's purposes. But for those that I have go through training on universal design for learning, they actually embed a statement toward the middle that says, and I have taken training in applying the principles of universal design for learning. So it lets students know, I take this seriously. This is how I'm applying it in the training that I've completed. So these are important things to do. Again, your university might have a diversity statement. Great, but can you build on that to make it more of an inclusivity statement? Because there is a difference. Inclusivity is going to be broader and usually speak more globally. And it's speaking about what each student brings to the experience and respecting that. Okay, so I'll go forward, but you have access to this and could certainly Google it through the Everly Center. And let's talk about your smart doorbell camera or your Ring camera and activating that camera. So how can you get a sense? You're trying to speak to students more effectively through your syllabus, but how can you get a sense about the students who are coming to your course? So this will be just one tool that we'll leave you off with here as we close pretty quick, is this learner connectedness survey. So at the same time you're sending out the syllabus ahead of time, you might also embed a link to this learner connectedness survey, and they can fill it out as early as they want to, or you can make it part of your welcome module as well, so they can do it at that point. You can have a deadline. The learner connectedness survey is where they're going to submit to you individually and confidentially some information about their identity, their name, their pronouns, their background, their goals, ways they feel like they're strong as a learner, ways where they may struggle, so that you can kind of see that ahead of time. None of the questions that are in here are required. It's all optional for them to share this information. Also, some situational factors about their work schedule, their commute schedule, their access to technology and bandwidth, those types of things, just so you're aware and be sensitive. Hopefully you're setting up all of your materials to be sensitive to that and all of your media and things like that, but you also want to be aware of your student situations. So it just gives you a composite and also some individual connections that you can make with your students, so that as you're walking them in, you know about them and how you can work with them most effectively. So we do have the link for you in the chat, and what happens, and I'll demonstrate very briefly, is when you click on that link, not a lot of people know about this, but there's a way you can make a copy link, so that when you give that URL out to anybody, they then get a button that says make a copy. And now you have your own copy of that Google form on your drive that you can customize as you want and have your own sheet that holds the answers. So we don't own the form that you have. We don't own the data at all. You have it all in your own drive and can move forward from there the way that you like. And that's easy to do by taking any of the Google Doc URLs and where it says edit at the end, instead change that to copy. It's as easy as that, quick little hack. So that works well for docs, forms, sheets, etc. Okay, so you have a copy of that to try and, again, build those connections. So let's close with a call to action. What are some of your next steps? Key takeaways or next steps? You are an instructor and you want to make your syllabus stronger. What are you going to do over the next couple of weeks? You are a learning designer. How are you going to help others, influence others? CTL director, how are you going to guide, advise, create workshops, a dialogue? What might you do? A department chair. I know we've got some who might be at the chair or director level. We even had, I think, AVP type level. So what might you do from that level to influence or support? I see we're at top of the hour. We'll take you back in just a second to the slide of resources and a quick announcement. start the conversation. First step, yeah. Staff development tomorrow, make the information known. Feel free to share, yeah, the slide deck, the resources we've shared, humanizing, tone, first person, make it engaging. Love that. Make it welcoming. Yeah, still adhering to the guidelines. Those guidelines tend to be pretty minimal. Some places they are a little bit more restrictive as far as templates. Great. Advocating for initiatives and workshops. Yeah. Awesome. I'm gonna, for time purposes, I appreciate that. And I know you've been sharing in the chat throughout your ideas of next steps. So takeaway resources, we will send you the slides. You'll have all of those examples and links embedded. You'll get the recording, the chat transcript. The Padlet will stay present if there's anything there that you wanted to go back to as a statement from one of your peers. You have links to the enhanced, the humanized, the liquid syllabus examples, even the mini course, learner connectedness survey, and the purposeful learning framework, all available. So please avail yourselves as you choose, and I hope that's helpful to you. I've enjoyed this. I've enjoyed all of your contributions and ideas. I hope this has covered the concept well for you, covered all bases as much as possible. So we do have a session coming up on the 17th, so just under a week, 3 ways to future fit your curriculum. So that will be via Zoom, and maybe we'll get, oh, we do have the links already from this slide in the chat for you. Great. And thank you all for your messages I see as you're outgoing. And then the other is, we have during the month of September, a Purposeful Learning Festival on mind, health, and wellness. It'll be on the Wednesdays of September, 12 p.m. Eastern. So we're going to have presentations, roundtables, performances. So we have a URL here that you have as well. And you'll get more information through that website. And we'll be sending information out as well. Thank you again, and all the best. And feel free to reach out if you have any ideas or questions. I really love talking about the syllabus. There's so much potential. Have a good day.